this will be the key here, Jack, won't it, going forward, particularly if City win it. And we've done numerous podcasts on this. People will talk about FFP, and some clubs will do that more than others. But the common theme across all of these leagues in Europe is the worry about the Premier League wealth.
Yeah, so clearly all the clubs all the big clubs, especially on the continent, are worried about the Premier League wealth. This was one of the big drivers for the Super League attempt in 2021, was because, we saw, as it happens, he's going to stay at Barcelona, but we saw this the other day with Mathieu Alemany, who nearly left Barcelona to go and run Aston Villa, which is obviously, says quite a lot about the financial imbalance between England and everywhere else. But there's City's different, isn't it? Because City's both Premier League. It's both a beneficiary of the wealth of the Premier League, while also being a beneficiary of the mineral wealth of the UAE. And it's so that, some of the issues with City are distinct to City, some of them are distinct to England. If you look at, PSG is actually, which we were talking about a second ago, is interesting in the sense that they show up what if you have, you can have mineral wealth, but if you're not in the Premier League, it's kind of a bit harder because you're not really like a day in, day out football club. The only thing that you can be is this sort of strange traveling circus, which is what PSG have managed to turn themselves into. I don't think, that's being a little bit reductive. Like, I don't think that the reason why PSG are like they are is solely because they're in Liga and not in the Premier League. Like, I think, they have made strategic decisions to sign famous players, and rather than like building up a solid football club. But yeah, I think if you kind of take a step back and look at the overall strategy, the fact that Abu Dhabi bought a Premier League football club rather than a club anywhere else in Europe, which clearly they could have afforded, has really helped them, because they've had a foothold in the biggest and most popular and most watched league anywhere in Europe, which has also given them a kind of, probably a more competitive and robust football team than if they and it would have looked more like a vanity project if they'd done it somewhere else on the continent.
Final thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, I think, look, I think if you're one of these bigger clubs on the continent, then what you're starting to get a little bit concerned by, on top of City's dominance, City's wealth, is how this is now kind of dripping down into the Champions League. We are still talking about a club here that hasn't won it yet, but I was slightly taken aback last night in the press conference when Pep just pointed out the obvious fact that it's now 2 Champions League finals in 3 years, and there's a semi-final in between that. I was like reading a few pieces on the game last night, this morning, and one of them pointed out that the last time that City lost the Champions League tie in 180 minutes was Tottenham in 2019. And that hit me as well. It's like, yeah, of course. But I think what we're seeing now is, yes, City haven't won it yet, this competition, but they've been there or thereabouts, and in the realm of doing so for quite a while now, really. And it's taken either a spectacular collapse like we saw last season, or that Tottenham game, or it's taken a team that is genuine contenders to them like Liverpool to knock them out of it. So they've always been there and thereabouts. And as long as you maintain your position there for as long as possible, you're going to ultimately win it at some point. So if you're Barcelona, if you're Real Madrid, if you're Bayern, and you're looking at that, you can see that once they've got one, they could build a dynasty. And I think that is what will only make discussions about the Super League and sovereign wealth and state-run clubs, etc., all the more relevant and all the more apparent over the next few years.
They just look different at the moment to City, Jack, to me, finally. They just seem to have a different aura about them, a different belief about them, a different way. They look both relaxed and determined at the same time. And I thought Jack Grealish's comment about they feel unstoppable was completely understandable. I know Guardiola then tried to knock that down and go, well, every team is stoppable. But I know what Grealish was trying to say. They look in the absolutely purplest of purple patches that a team could be.
Yeah, that's why it feels so new, doesn't it? Even though City have been consistently really, really good, basically since the start of Guardiola's second season. So that's August 2017. City, I think, have been performing at an astonishingly high level, which is as borne out by the points totals that they've got in the league. But I don't think, but even then, it's not, there've been a few ups and downs, but what we've seen in the last sort of 6 months, I think doesn't really feel like part of that. It feels better than that. It feels, I know Mark was hinting at this earlier, it feels a bit like City have kind of squared that circle, haven't they? Like, there's, for so much of the Guardiola era, it's been this kind of trade-off between, is it control versus creativity versus expression, and you want to dominate the ball, but can you create chances? And I actually thought they were pretty good back when they didn't even have a centre forward and they had like Foden or De Bruyne up front. But the last 6 months, the combination of first having Haaland up front, then having, pushing Stones into this midfield role, I just feel like they have, it's like he's completed the equation. This is a team which has total control, unbelievable physical power. They create lots of chances without compromising their control of the ball. They've got a big centre forward up front, but they're not easy to play a long ball against. It's not like they've lost anything by having an old-fashioned number 9 who doesn't press properly, which of course was the case back when they had Sergio Aguero. It's hard to. They have reached this kind of state of, you don't want to, for want of a better word, perfection. And that's what feels so new about it. And so, it's not the kind of thing that you expect to see from sports teams. And I guess it does show what you can do if you spend 15 years spending that much money, thinking about it very strategically and ruthlessly. Who do we need to get in? Here's the manager we want to get in. How do we get him in? We get the people we've worked with before, allow them to rebuild the club, like literally, as a clean slate, to achieve, so that the manager has the perfect platform for what he wants. And then if you do all of that, then I guess this is eventually where it ends up.